Fred, welcome to Mitiga Mic.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, Fred, before we begin, I'd love it if you could give our audience a little bit of background about who you are and how you came up in security and what it is you do today.
Yeah, happy to. So my current role today, I'm the CISO for DeVry University. I've been here roughly about 3.5 years. Previously, before that, I was the CISO over at Delta Dental Plans Association. And my career, I pretty much grew up throughout IT. So I started working on the help desks at a couple different locations, doing some contract work, and slowly made my way up through networking, and then did some system administration along the way into firewalling and IPSs, and then finally taking on security architecture, and then eventually moving me over to the CISO position. So I've been roughly 20 plus years in IT and security now. More than that now that I think about it. But it's been a good run so far.
That's awesome. From help desk to CISO. You know, it's interesting. You're not the first CISO that I've met that started in the help desk. Had some people start in programming or system administration or something completely orthogonal to our space. I had one gentleman that said the tipping point for him when he decided, man, I have to find another area to specialize on. I think it's going to be security. He said he was doing help desk and he was helping this lady set up her mouse. And he spent like an hour trying to get it to turn into a dinosaur when you do the double click because she had the software loaded that he goes, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Well, awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about the cloud. I want to jump right into the cloud and jump right into SOC, stuff that I know you're very familiar with. So clearly cloud has changed how organizations operate. I don't think that's anything new. And, maybe 10 years ago, we were saying it's going to change, but it has changed. But how has it changed how SOCs operate, especially when you're talking about incident detection or incident response?
Yeah, when I think about the SOC and how it has to operate in a cloud-based world now, it has dramatically changed in the things that they have to look at and the alerts that they get. So in the past, we would be responsible for taking the infrastructure, feeding the logs over to a SIM, and then creating correlation rules for then the SOC to act on. Now in the cloud and in SaaS-based applications, a lot of those logs aren't necessarily that easy to feed in. And we rely more on API connectors to provide that information that we need and then still do that correlation and that work. But the other thing that's kind of important is that you may not have full visibility across all of your cloud resources today the way that you were able to do when infrastructure and systems and servers were in your organization. And so the shift really comes from where you're getting your log sources from, how you're getting that information, and then obviously what you're doing with that information because the perimeter has changed with the cloud as well.
Yeah, and those are some good points because logging in the cloud, logs and alerts are so different than it was when you were just looking at on-prem. And a lot of the times I'm finding, and let me know if you're seeing this as well, is not everybody that's a security expert is a cloud expert. Not everybody that knows cloud necessarily knows security. There is a Venn diagram there and there is some overlap, but sometimes maybe they know AWS or maybe they know GCP or maybe they know some SaaS applications or identity management controls, but very rarely is it all of those things where it used to be you felt pretty confident that your security team understood firewalls and IPS and anti-malware and all these other controls, but it seems like the cloud has introduced some gaps into the SOC. Are you seeing that as well?
I think so. I think the reality is we're asking our SOC individuals to know more and more as we continue our journey down the cloud. But it's become more difficult for someone to know all the technologies that live in the cloud, especially when you're thinking about SaaS-based applications. So not only are they having to deal with multi-cloud, GCP, Azure, AWS, but then they also have to deal with those third-party large applications, ERP systems, ServiceNow, things like Salesforce, and the different security controls that are required for each of those large-based applications. You don't necessarily have the visibility that you once did again, on the on-prem environment. And so we are relying more on dedicated individuals to either know those different technologies, or we're looking for solutions that can help us to query those technologies to let us know, what is the right security appetite that we should be applying for, or controls that we should be applying for those applications and or infrastructure as a service solutions.
Yeah, no, well said. Especially, I'll sort of underscore that visibility bit. If you do have a multi-cloud environment, which most people do, and you do have multiple SaaS applications, which everybody does, and you do have some type of identity management solution or multiple flavors of, man, if you're not looking at all of that, if you're only looking at one or two of those pieces, it's it's like going to the foot doctor and saying, hey, can you diagnose my ear infection, right? It's just not going to work. And I think the power of the cloud, that interconnective capability, everything leveraging APIs, and you have third and fourth and fifth party providers that are connecting to you and providing value in some way, it really has put emphasis on having visibility into what's going on, because that's changed so dramatically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have to add on the components also with like the identity access management components of each of those
Right.
different softwares. And if you're not doing SSO properly, or if you're not governing that properly, that creates another whole bag of worms that you have to deal with. I guess it's very similar in terms of internal as well. Back before we had SAML, or we had the ability to federate, it was very painful. And so I think that in some sense, cloud has made that easier for us to get that visibility and centralize, but at the same time, making sure that you're doing the right thing to do so, provokes a bit of a challenge. And as we continue to use more SaaS-based applications, some of these applications charge additional, right, for those enterprise technology connects, such as SAML, or providing single sign-on. And so, we need to be diligent when we work with our business partners to make sure, hey, I know all you need from a business package is the standard plan, but we really need enterprise to control the access appropriately, right? And having those types of discussions, there is a bit of an uplift, at least some vendors charge.
Yeah, and you're so right on that. And that really goes across just the general SaaS applications as well. Just some that I'm very familiar with as of late, like Slack. We all use Slack. Slack Enterprise gives you logs. If you don't have it, you don't get it. Microsoft 365 gives you 7 days of storage by default, and you can go back 90 days, but it's intentionally throttled, and it takes more than a month to get a month of data. And we suggest 3 years, so that doesn't really do you any good, even having 7 to 90 days. And then you've got something like Salesforce, which a lot of the logs from Salesforce and other larger products like that, SaaS applications like that, they provide the logs maybe once a day, every 24 hours, which, depending on what time of day it happens, that could be almost 48 hours before you get it. So that's not really even near real time unless you have a higher level of service. So all things to consider. I want to talk a little bit about prevention, though, because you've been in the industry for quite a while, and there's always this back and forth between higher focus on prevention or higher focus on detection and response. But I think the cloud, again, has put us in an environment where this idea of zero breach, like I'm going to be able to stop everything. And there's lots of vendors in the news these days about something happened, but not necessarily directly to them or to their partner, but that partner's partner. And you're not going to have control of that in a cloud environment. So the notion of zero breach becomes even harder to accept. So I think we've moved on from that a little bit. We've moved to maybe a zero impact breach prevention world, where a security solution could rapidly detect and respond before real harm is done. And it feels like the focus has become on resiliency. How quickly can I detect and respond, juxtaposed to just building a higher, thicker, more impenetrable wall to stop attackers to get through? Because honestly, I'm not controlling a lot of those conduits. Are you seeing that resiliency adoption?
I think so. I think what we've learned throughout the years is, while zero breach was a good kind of North Star, I don't think it was ever realistic. And so, as we as defenders try to continue to play on this field, we realize that, hey, we're never going to hit that North Star. So we really need to prepare from a resilient resiliency perspective or recovery perspective, and to take action as quickly as we can to mitigate those risks, or to control the blast radius as much as we can, and control the scenario, right? That's ultimately where we're at, I think, for most organizations that, aren't, don't have a blank checkbook when it comes to security. And even those that have that blank checkbook, right, they're still getting popped here and there. It's just more around controlling the blast radius, controlling, access to those crown jewels, and making sure that, hey, if we are breached, then what are the lingering effects? How quickly can we recover? And were any of the critical information actually stolen, or were they just able to breach, through not, I shouldn't say unsupported, but I would say a less secure fourth party or third party that we deal with access to, and we just have to provide that access, and that provides an exposure point, right?
Yeah. Well, let's go a little bit deeper into those exposure points. And I want to pull AI into this because you can't talk about security without talking about AI these days. But everybody seems to be talking about this notion of, I've got my AI infrastructure, which in almost every single case is going to be in the cloud. There's some rare exceptions, but that's going to be in the cloud. So I want to protect that. And I also want to protect from AI fueled attacks, which are these highly scalable, extremely fast, very personalized attacks that are leveraging AI, everything from phishing campaigns to targeting certain ports and protocols within your environment using old school techniques, but helping you really hone in. How is that changing the threat landscape? And for somebody like you, that's a CISO for a very well-known and large organization, are these some of the concerns that you have protecting your AI infrastructure and protecting from AI-centric attacks?
Absolutely. There's the way I kind of look at AI is there's kind of two challenges right now. One is the threat actors using AI as part of their attack vector, and then the other component is the uninformed or inadvertent data loss that can happen through AI through misuse within the organization, right? So there's kind of those two components that exacerbate themselves just because AI is able to propagate and transfer and make decisions on data very quickly, right? And so let's talk about the first components, right? We know that threat actors are using AI to polish up phishing campaigns or vishing campaigns, for example. So those Nigerian prince emails that we all know and love, right? That those are no longer the case. Now we're looking at very sophisticated, targeted emails targeting specific individuals because they're able to scour the internet, understand their position, understand who they are, understand potentially some of the technologies they're using, and craft messages to those individuals in order to try to hook or fish them appropriately, right? And they're much more sophisticated now. The second one has to deal with the AI use, or the use of AI to create or take advantage of vulnerabilities that can be found. Anyone now can run some sort of port scan or some sort of scanning tool against your cloud-based infrastructure, and find vulnerabilities that may exist there, right? And then they can use the AI to say, hey, based off of this vulnerability, how would you be able to, or how would you craft some sort of code snippet, or how would you be able to take advantage of this vulnerability and get that data very quickly using the AI LLMs that exist for those purposes. So those are the ones that don't have the guardrails that some of the more prominent LLM technologies have. And so that's a big concern. So now that we have these, what used to be script kiddies, have much more ability to have sophisticated attack patterns that maybe they didn't have in the past, or didn't have the knowledge to do. AI allows them to accelerate that knowledge, just like it accelerates knowledge for us on the good side.
Yeah.
That's a big concern.
Yeah, AI and sort of vibe coding, even sort of augmenting the traditional script kiddie to be far more powerful than it was back in the day when some script kiddie learned about Nmap or Nessus or some of these other tools. Look, I can put in an IP address and hit go, and it does stuff. Well, Fred, as we wrap up here, I'd love just to get your take on, why organizations should consider a CDR or cloud detection and response program to sort of address these issues that we've covered. And really as part of that, why having an AI native engine, something like Mitiga powering that CDR is maybe something people should look at.
I think one of the key things that as security professionals we have to think about is fighting AI with AI. And that's really important because, again, the speed in which these attacks are going to start happening even further and further when you take into account the use of AI agents that can constantly be doing surveillance or analysis against your external facing entities and then constantly trying to create new attacks against them. You need something that is 24/7 on your side, kind of mitigating at the same time, right? No pun intended there. And so these technologies, such as the ones that Mitiga are implementing, are going to help us from a defense side to be able to be in that same table stakes, using the same technologies to defend against these real-time attacks and take action on our behalf. And it's not to say that our SOCs are ineffective, but if we need to operate at a much faster capacity or space, then we need to be able to take advantage of these technologies that know how to integrate with the cloud and take action on our behalf very quickly. And I'd rather take the risk of shutting down something that's non-critical than taking the risk of potential exposure of our organization or our data. And these technologies definitely help with that.
Great. Well, Fred, this was awesome. Thank you so much for being part of Mitiga Mic. We loved having you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.